Hey, welcome everybody. Scott, how you doing?
Living the dream.
Excellent. Well, definitely excited. Had a lot of fun preparing for this one for sure. Everybody, we have the legend Scott McNealy on for today, episode 182 of Tech Sales Insights. The title topic is sales tips from a legend, but truth be told, we'll be meandering through a whole bunch of different topics. For those that are members of sales community, thanks. For those that are not, Tucker will throw up a free link. Feel free to go ahead and join. And we're sponsored by Sandler today, who's the sales training sponsor of Sales Community. Been around forever, and we've got some fantastic new age ways to help with sales training, individual contributors all on up. And a lot of what we're seeing these days and talking to CRO friends about Sandler is really those first line sales managers. A lot of times got promoted up through COVID, really didn't deserve it. It was kind of a retention thing. And, I always feel, and I know Scott did at Sun too, it's really those kind of first line managers that really run the go-to-market engine. So thank you, Sandler. So by way of introduction, Scott lives in Vegas, has happily married to Susan, who I remember meeting several times back in the Sundays. Four awesome sons. Oldest is Maverick, who people probably know as a pro golfer, pilot, husband. And I think you had recently given Maverick an interesting birthday present.
Yeah, I'm getting up there in age, and he's the first one to get married. So at his birthday party with all the family and in-laws around, I gave him an envelope with a condom with the tip cut off and 2 Viagra. So a very clear message. Pull the goalie, buddy. Pull the goalie.
Can't make it up. And then Dakota, who works at Ford, running a bunch of the factory business areas, and he has also notably bought and sold 6 trucks for a good profit.
Yeah, he's the factory to car network guru there.
Awesome. And then Colt, who I've had the pleasure of meeting and talking to, is the founder of Little Horse. Graduated Stanford in 3 years while also working at Rex and being an amateur golfer. And you've a bit involved, to say the least, with Little Horse, it sounds.
Yeah, I'm kind of the chief funder and chairman emeritus, and I'm the psych couch for the boy as he learns how to be a CEO. He's already better than me. I'm pretty amazed, actually.
Awesome. And then the youngest is Scout, who kind of was in the house flipping market, making a lot of money, and now he is the caddy for Maverick.
Yeah, Maverick said, "Hey, I need you, buddy." He wants to go hunt down his first win with Scout on the bag. I think they can do it.
Awesome, that'd be great. And then you're, certainly have always been an avid golfer and ex-hockey player, and now becoming a rancher with your cow and back, right?
Yeah, this is my cow. I've got about, I don't know if you can see the brand there, but there it is, JBarV. It's a Jacks Valley Ranch, and we're going to be coming out with some designer beef and some lifestyle products around the JBarV brand. So I'm now B2C. I've never done B2C, so this is my new deal, and I'm going to have 1,000 cattle on 1,800 acres and just living the dream. Really high tech.
Awesome. I don't know if you remember John Hinshaw. He has a vineyard, Blackbird Vineyard. So you may need to kind of tag team on that.
We'll do a little pairing of designer pairing of the beef and wine. There you go.
Get some good pairing there. So anyway, we first met. I knew you kind of more as a competitor probably when I was at Sun and Storage Tech, and I'm sorry, when I was at Storage Tech and EMC. And then through the Sun acquisitions of Storage Tech, came on to Sun summer of 2006. And my job there is basically running the financial services vertical 06 to 09. And certainly was a tough time, but in spite of the financial headwinds, we managed to grow. And I love that you're always very direct. You're always there, especially with face-to-face sales calls. I would be, the executive, face to all these different, CIOs and C-suite people, and you'd have Rutgers, Tucci, Chambers, everybody else coming through, and you were, fortunately always there for me to come on and help with those executive touch points. So thanks so much for that. And customers always loved you, and in a nice way, I always found that you had your dry sense of humor worked then and still works now. And you always wanted feedback on everything, especially if it was about your direct reports, which we want to talk about here. And several times it would be late night, you being a San Jose Sharks fan, we'd have to find a bar that was open late enough to still have the game on. And several times we'd be in the bar just kind of hanging out. And all these kids had no clue that they're watching the hockey game with Scott McNealy, and you're in your element. And we just kind of hung out and had a good time. And then, of course, I always got up early the next day to answer the bell to go on sales calls. And then one of the best things of sales calls with you was the private jets always made it much easier to kind of bounce around to various cities as well. And then in my book, which Tucker will throw up a link for, my testimony to you was thanks to Scott McNealy for reminding me that in spite of the headquarters crap, the customer and your sales teams are what count. So show up and do the right thing. So appreciate you for that. And so also to help me with the introductions. And then Tucker, kind of as we go here, if you want, you can just kind of pull in. I won't read them, but you can just kind of pull some of the great comments. Colt, glad you like my shirt. Yes, it's Sun Microsystems bowling shirt. So this is proof, still a fond memory. I still have it. Still nice and pressed, little big, but anyway, Rich Napolitano, who ran the U.S. go-to-market and sales, says Scott's deep understanding of technology and his ability to see major transitions in the industry, like the big freaking Webtone switch as a precursor to cloud, his ability to inspire teams, and his commitment to mentoring others. And he said, personally, he appreciates you taking him as a former engineer, a repeat startup guy, and handing him the U.S. to rebuild from a sales perspective. He definitely appreciates what you've done to make him an exceptional leader. Greg Pop, and there's a lot more everybody said. I'm just kind of picking and choosing here, but Greg Papadopoulos, who CTO and ran R&D, is a partner now at NEA, said more than any other CEO in the Valley, Scott deeply understood that sustained innovation wasn't top down. It bubbled up from the creativity of individual engineers, marketers, and everyone in the field. Sun was a singular culture in this way, and everybody misses it. He was also an expert at punching above his weight with his legendary biting commentary. It made customers think, it made the markets pay attention and competitors seethe. Simply masterful. I miss that too. Bill Voss, who was CIO, and I think CISO, ran president of Fed, kind of a bunch of different areas. Scott has always had amazing vision for where technology is going. The network as a computer defined the future of client server and the evolution of the web. He also mentions a big freaking Webtone switch. Unfortunately, he also predicted the future we are all in with social media. You have no privacy, get over it. Sun under Scott was also a place that created incredible leaders that went on to lead amazing Silicon Valley companies like Google and many others. Billy Scannell, who's was a longtime competitor at EMC, now president of Dell, runs the go-to-market. Actually talked to him this morning. Says Scott is one of the most competitive executives I've ever met. Early in my career, when traveling to see customers all over the world, when EMC competed against Sun, it seemed every customer I visited had either just met Scott or planned to see him in a day or two. I often wondered, were there 5 Scotts running around? Then he was on the board of Green Plum, who EMC acquired. He created the Green Plum Challenge, which was held at Pebble Beach, and it was match play format with top sales reps from both companies. Scott and his family created a video of how Team McNealy was going to crush Team Scannell. It even featured his young son at the time, Maverick, who now plays professional golf. Scott always prepared to win and leave it on the field. Do you remember that?
I do. Like it was yesterday.
There you go. He also said in the sidebar, he said, anytime they played there, they would leave, I guess, a few EMC golf balls in your backyard there at Pebble. But and he says, a true competitor, an absolute legend in our industry, and a pretty good stick in his day. Colt says, on behalf of all the boys, wow, introducing my dad is quite a challenge. But what people don't know about him is that even though he was in charge of the company that brought amazing technology and innovations to the world, he was an even better dad. So, I mean, you can't get can't get better than that. So anyway, I will send these to you so you can put them up on the fridge and you can show Susan and anybody that comes by.
That's
So,
awesome.
awesome there. So jumping in the questions. So you went to school in Boston across the river from BC.
I
So
couldn't get into BC, so I went to Harvard.
there you go. We're not allowed to say the name, but interesting summer job that you had was washing cars and other odds and ends for Roger Penske.
Yeah, he's one of my great idols. Maybe Jack Welch being another one. Ken Oshman. I had a chance to see a lot of really great CEOs. My first job was washing cars for $1.75 an hour, and I also opened up the car dealership in the summers, and I had to make sure that there was not one cigarette butt on property. When Roger came into the office, I got this push sweeper out, and I'd spend the first hour of the day pushing this sweeper and making sure. And Roger never found a cigarette butt, I'm proud to say.
Nice. And then fast forward, you both end up on the board of GE, right?
Yeah, I walked in on the first day at the board meeting, and I'm wearing blue jeans and a dress shirt. And Jack Welch goes, "Are you gonna go to the GE board meeting in blue jeans?" I said, "Yeah, am I the first one?" He said, "Well, yeah." I go, "Great," and I walk away, and he's shaking his head like I can't believe it. But walk in, and there's Roger Penske, who's also on the board. So it's kind of a circle of life thing, going from $1.75 an hour to helping run General Electric. It was quite a fun moment.
Awesome. And then for those that don't know, Scott was co-founder of Sun Microsystems and CEO from 84 to 06. Started Curriki in 05 as a co-founder and board member, and really just on a fantastic global education mission there.
Yeah, that's a tough. There's a lot of ex-CEOs trying to fix the education problem, and we're kind of on our fourth wave and effort and strategy with Curriki. My oldest son, you can donate through www.birdiesforeducation.com, and every time he gets a birdie, people are donating $1 or $5 or $10 or whatever for every one of his birdies, and he's raised millions of dollars for the effort, and we're trying to do a great job of investing that in better ways to do education.
Awesome. So Tucker, maybe post that, birdiesforeducation.com. Is that it?
Birdiesforeducation.com, yes.
Okay, great. So Tucker, maybe throw that up there. I've got, I think, an annual I do every year to Curriki. And then you did weigh in 2010 to 17, Flume Ventures the past couple of years. And then you're mentioned before with Light Horse.
Little
Horse.
Sorry. There you
go. So that's got to be a lot of fun.
It is absolute kick. I can't help Maverick in golf anymore because at the age of 12, he thumped me. Dakota is doing deep R&D technology, writing software, and I can't help him a lot. But Colt's being a CEO, and I can help him a lot. I can help Scout on caddying. I love caddy. The caddies are all sitting in the caddy room going, "Boy, we went out, me and my guy, we got a birdie and a birdie, a birdie and a birdie, and then he doubled, and then we got another birdie, and then he doubled again." And so that's kind of, he's learning the caddy speak. Huh? We did great. He screwed up.
Yeah, exactly. And then now getting into some more questions here. So I was talking to Rick Scurfield this morning, and he had a great question, which is, how could you be a CEO and a great golfer?
That's a good question. You know what? I didn't care much about my golf game at the time. And so I'd go out and swing away and swing easy and have a good time with it. And I got better as a CEO because my net worth, my personal self-respect wasn't built on my golf game. As soon as I retired, my game went to heck, and I was trying too hard. And to this day, I can't play like I did when I was CEO because, now I'm supposed to play well.
Gotcha. And especially in Vegas, all those courses. But what a lot of people may not know that Colt alluded to, but you're very passionate on the parenting side. So any thoughts to share there based on what you experienced with your parents and then what you and Susan did?
Well, actually, I'm here to talk about sales, and I was known as a pretty good sales guy, but I would love to do an hour-long podcast on my views on parenting and the responsibility that both parents have, and that if you're going to bring a child into this world, you ought to take full responsibility until they're out of the nest. And we had some very, very tough rules on the boys. You're all going to play golf and hockey because I like those sports, and I'm not going to watch you play 0-0 soccer game, magnet ball, or stand around in right field playing baseball, and I wanted to be part of that process, and I thought those were two good sports. They were very, very different. One's team, one's personal, one's physical, one's emotional. There are a lot of things that kids learned about that. They all slept in the same room. We had 4 beds lined up, barrack style. No electronics were allowed in the room. They had set bedtimes. They ate the same food. They went to the same school. They played the same sports. They lived by the same rules. They slept in the same room. They had a little study that they all worked in. And if you didn't eat dinner, we wrapped it up, and that was breakfast. And there was no negotiation. They had a wonderful, loving tiger mom that we made sure that we were always on the same page. You couldn't divide and conquer the two of us. No electronics in the bedroom. We had one game machine that lasted for about 2 weeks, and then somebody kicked a wire out of it and broke it, and we never fixed it. And we told them no games and no social until you were into college. We had their passwords on all their electronics. We didn't allow them to do sleepovers, and we got them out of government schools because they weren't focused on. We put them in a school called Challenger that was. Most parents didn't want to put their kids in because the kids were so academic, and I thought, well, let's let them swim with the sharks and the real aggressive learners, and all of that was well spent energy, time, and all the rest of it. And then finally, I had an advantage when the boys were 2, 4, 6, and 8. I had been running Sun for decades, and I'd been through it, and I got married at a late age at 39. Susan and I just celebrated our 30th at the Little White Chapel in Las Vegas with Elvis Presley. We had Dolly Parton and a couple of showgirls and all my buddies and her buddies there. It was a blast. Anyhow, I got a chance to step down as CEO from the best job in the world because I didn't want to leave Susan with 2, 4, 6, 8-year-old boys. And I spent a lot more time at home. I didn't stop working, but I spent a lot more time at home rather than traveling around because I wanted to be there for my boys.
Awesome, really good. Well, I'm totally up to do that podcast with you for sure. Lots of great wisdom for sure. And so early days of Sun, I know Andy made it, but then made the product. But then you had Vinod, Eric, Bill, and you. Kind of, how did you figure out who's going to do what?
Well, Andy's like one of maybe the greatest commercial hardware engineer ever. Bill Joy was the best Unix and OS guy in his era, I think, by far. Vinod was a IIT from India engineer and had been doing engineering workstations before. And I was building tanks and had a golf major from Harvard. So it was pretty clear who was going to do what. Vinod ran the joint. Bill and Andy did the hardware and software and hardware. And I did manufacturing. I built the racks. I ordered the parts. I gave them part numbers. I did my first ERP system on VI, for those of you who know Unix. And I was the sales guy. The original sales guy, and I kind of did any and everything that I could, and eventually 2 years into it, Vinod left, and they asked me to take over temporarily, and unfortunately that temporarily turned into decades, but it was quite a ride and a lot of fun.
Awesome. And by chance, I was at a Stanford kind of MBA program probably 20 years ago, and we had a case study on Sun Microsystems, and Vinod came in and told us a computer vision story. Can you briefly? So
there was Autotrol, computer vision, Mentor Graphics, or whatever. There were about 4 major CAD companies at the time, and Apollo had locked up 3 of them, and we were bidding against them at Computer Vision, who was the largest, And if computer vision went to Apollo would have had 95% of the market, and Sun is gone. I mean, there's just nowhere to sell engineering workstations if 95% of the market is with your competitor. And so we had to win it, and we were doing everything we could to win it. And we were sitting in Vinod's office at about 2:30, 3 o'clock. Phone rings. Vinod picks it up, and Vinod's not a very light complexion guy, but he said, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then he went absolutely pale white, and he hung up. And I said, what happened? He said, that was computer vision. They called and they said, thank you, click. But we looked at each other and went, what do we do now? And to
Sorry, I think you just froze there for the punchline. So what did they say?
They said we have decided to go a different direction. We're not going to go with you. We're all done. We do not want to communicate with you at all anymore. Click. And Vinod went pale, and what do we do? So he said, let's make a proposal. So we got the engineers in, and we designed a new workstation with unbelievable statistics and capabilities, priced it at below cost, said we'd give them manufacturing rights, which was unheard of in those days, said we would, do joint this, that, joint manufacturing, whatever. We put everything we could think of that would make a difference, put it in a proposal, and then we made 7 FedEx packages. We had to get it done by 4:30 when the FedEx truck came. So we FedExed to 7 people that we knew inside of computer vision this outlandish proposal. I think we even offered them stock options in the company. And Vinod and an engineer got in an airplane and flew a red eye, and they went to the lobby, and they sat in the lobby all morning, and they were, calling people saying, did you get it? Nobody would want to talk to them. Nobody. And finally at lunchtime, somebody came down and said, get out of here before people walk through the lobby at lunch. We got your proposal. We understand it. You're not going to do any good here. You got to get out of here. So Vinod came home, and then about 3 days later on a Thursday, we got a phone call, and they said, meet us at Chicago O'Hare Saturday morning. Bring a printer and a contracts lawyer. And if we hear peep one about this, the deal's off. So we flew out there, negotiated the deal, announced it Monday, and that was sort of the end of Apollo. It was, and the message there is deals are never lost; they're only postponed. You can never get arrogant and tough when you think you have the deal until you have it signed. It ain't signed till it's signed. And you can change the course of history in some pretty interesting ways by just I give Vinod huge credit for being the guy who said we're just not going to lose this. And my reaction was, if we lost that deal, we lose everything anyhow. So throw in the kitchen sink, throw in source code, throw in manufacturing rights, throw in some equity. What do you got to lose? Nothing at that stage. So the Hail Mary did work in that case.
Awesome. Never give up. And, for those earlier in career, maybe inappropriate these days, but certainly, a lot to be said for, showing up, waiting, seeing people. And I think to a certain degree, people really admire what I'd say would be, kind of polite aggressiveness, because if you're going to do that with them, they know that you're going to be there 7/24 if the shit hits a fan or they need help or issues going on. So
here's the lost art today with the young kids who've been learning on blue screen, self-paced on-demand learning. Sales is a contact sport. You've got to be there. You can't Zoom your way to B2B success. You might be able to do B2C success on the screen and Zooming and all the rest of it, but B2B, you better be there. You better take them to lunch. You don't have to buy a fancy lunch, but you got to be there. They got to see you. I went to Japan 15 times where I sat there, and I remember sitting down with the Fujitsu executive team the first time, and there's all the board, the CEO, and they just sat there and they grunted, and they just looked at me, and they were waiting to see if I was patient enough to let them talk first. And fortunately, I had good coaching and schooling, and I just sat there and politely bowed and all the rest. And after about 15 times and a bunch of dinners, I'll never forget when I got engaged to Susan, the CEO of Fujitsu, said, what's new with you? I said, well, I just got engaged. And he leans back and he goes, I understand. You go from open systems to proprietary systems now. The whole place cracked up. And that's when I knew we were going to have a big I mean, when they're finally cracking jokes and having fun with you, you know you're going to have a great relationship. And Fujitsu, I think, was our largest customer, along with maybe AT&T and Kodak and a couple of others. And you just got to go spend the time, and you got to accept the culture. You got to accept the management and personalities of the people you're working with, and compliment them. And you still got to be you, but you got to be they got to like you. They got to trust you to do these big deals.
Absolutely. Know me, like me, trust me. Absolutely. And it was also great about the Vinod story. It wasn't just the rep, hey, and then the leadership's going to call in. Vinod was there with that. And how many times these days, I see it where, hey, the rep's there, and okay, well, where's the leadership? Where's anybody from management or reps coming to me? Hey, Randy, can you help? I'm like, where the hell's your leadership? Well, they can't really get here. They don't want to, they're busy, or they got a QBR. I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me, right? What's more important than leadership also showing up to show that support to help the sales team?
Exactly. And what Sun did aggressively was we had, I think, 2 tech support engineers for every sales rep. And then the sales rep could go and make a call and drop off a tech support engineer and leave them there to help and do the work, all the rest of it. And sales reps thought they were important, but our TSEs were far more important. And in fact, our Unix capability in our tech support engineering was the second best Unix development team in the world, behind our own development team. And that's how you have to build a really great sales force. So if I'm a sales rep, I would take care of the TSEs. I would take them to lunch, because you want them on your side and wanting to help your customers.
Absolutely. And I think Hal Stern, if I remember right, was kind of the ringleader of that group, right?
He was awesome.
So great. All right. And then for those that have chimed in, Tucker, if you want, feel free just to kind of pop them so that others can see. But thanks to John, Colt, Ruth Ann, Ryan, who just went from, I think it was LinkedIn to Indeed to now, I think, Salesforce, Ryan, and Dimitri and Helen, John, Dimitri again. So, and if anybody wants, feel free to ask a question. We have Tucker behind the scenes, as always, helping us. So thank you, Tucker. So Sunspun, a lot of unicorn CEOs, a lot of great leaders. Any tips for how you develop people?
Yeah, it was just survival, because I didn't want to be CEO. I never did. My dad was vice chairman of American Motors, president of AMF, and ran an ad agency, and I never saw him, and I didn't want to do that with my boys. So I never wanted to be CEO. I always wanted to be number 2. I talked Vinod into being CEO when we started the company. But two years later, all of a sudden, I'm CEO. And I handed the board a resignation letter the day I took over. And I said, anytime you guys want me to step down, I will help you find a real leader. And there's a lot of stories about how that went. But I spent my whole time trying to develop my replacement. And as a result, Carol Bartz, Eric Schmidt, Satya Nadella at Microsoft, Bill Coleman at BEA. I mean, we added it up, and there were over 200 former Sun folks who became CEOs in tech and the Valley and all the rest of it. So I was successful in developing, but I never was smart enough to make them take over. And eventually, I just said, all right, I've had enough, and it's time to step aside. But that development was always to ask is to seek denial was part of this thing. We delegated, we architected, and then distributed the responsibility. So I spent a lot of time architecting the company and then telling people, oh, you go get it done. To ask is to seek denial was a really important part of it. Go do it and don't screw it up. And if you screw it up, come back, apologize, and then fix it, and everything will be fine. Don't you dare cheat. We had a dress code. You must kick butt, have fun. It's, your responsibility to stay skills current, not the company's. We had a lot of big rules to help us run the company. And, Joe Roebuck helped us in sales. Where there's a wallet, there's a way. And I would always say, that no deal's ever lost. It's only postponed. And, it was, the customer comes first. I also got trained well sales by a lot of very senior sales guys. They looked at me and they go, "Look at this kid. He's not even shaving yet, and I got to take him in." So they would kind of slap me around a little bit before we go in. And what I learned first was you don't go in and talk. The first thing you do is say, "Hey, how are we doing?" If they're a current customer, don't you dare try and sell something new. You say, "How are we doing? Are we taking care of you? Is everything okay?" The last thing you want to do is step on the landmine without letting them explain to you where the landmines are. And then you say, "All right, we're going to get those fixed." And then, I would do that. And the thing I would say always out the door, and I probably did that to you more than once, I would say to the customer, "Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. If Randy isn't getting it done, here's my phone number. You call me the second he's not getting what you need done." And the customer appreciated that. And the sales rep would go, "Oh my God, I don't want them calling Scott." So, I kind of put them on notice that it's your job to keep these guys happy. But making the customer talk first. If they weren't a customer, I would say, "All right, who are your current suppliers, and what are your big pain points?" And I would make sure they talked. And after they talked, I would go, "Wow, that's exactly what I'm here to solve," no matter what they said. So it really made your sale. And I don't know whether they believed it or not, but you could craft a story that would explain how what you're doing will help them with their pain points. And that was the key to success. I think too many salespeople want to hear themselves talk.
Yep, absolutely. And then when you're kind of hiring top talent, any traits in particular that you look for?
You know, I really hired really great sales managers who didn't mind letting people go who didn't fit the culture. And I think that's the hardest part. I know, with Colt, he's sort of like me. My biggest fault was always at the board when they would do my reviews. You don't fire the people. You come in and you complain about them, but you don't fire them quickly enough. That's not a Steve Jobs trait. That's not an Elon Musk trait. That's not a Larry Ellison trait. That's a McNealy trait. And I had a hard time. If I hired somebody, it's because I liked them. And that's a key component. I think that's why almost everybody, 99.9% of the people who are former Suns said that was the best place they've ever worked, because we all got along. We were good people. We were nice people. We hardworking, all the rest of it. But sometimes people just are misplaced or we mishired. And the good sales managers will let the people who aren't getting it done go and not think about it. And, Joe Roebuck, you know, Daryl Barbet, all these guys that helped build they said sometimes I made a mistake, and they would address them quickly. And I think that's important for sales management. Some people aren't cut out for sales. Some people just don't have the knack. Some people just don't have the constitution to take no and to respond from it. Some people take no and crumple. Other people take no and go, "Watch this, hold my beer." So you got to get the right crew in there.
Yep, absolutely. So from Rick Diana, we have a note here. Thank you, Scott. 25 years ago, when 1 terabyte filled the data center, I learned about a competitive sales lesson. EMC and Son both had share of a particular Fortune 500 auto manufacturer. It wasn't my account, but it woke me up nevertheless. Not to take a competitor for granted. Apparently, the EMC account team was proud of its 4 terabytes in the data center until they learned that Sun had 10x that with 40 terabytes on the edge. And yes, Scott, sales pros cannot Zoom themselves to sales prominence. Would love to hear another parenting story. I did love playing right field in college, but wish I concentrated more on golf. You gave lots of parenting tips there. Anything else briefly you'd want to add?
You're not your kid's friend. You're their parent. And too many parents want to, have sleepovers and, go water skiing with their kid and, do all of these other things, or, let them play their sport they want to, whatever. If the boys didn't want to play golf, when we went to the driving range, one would invariably say, "I don't want to play." I said, "Well, sit in the car, no problem." And then we get ice cream and we go hit golf balls at the ball picker upper, and everybody would be laughing, having fun, and the kid will come out and play. Or, "I don't want to play hockey. I want to quit." "All right, go in and tell your coach." "I'm not telling him." Right. You gotta be their parent, not their friend. And they will, if you do that, they'll be your best friend for life. when they're out on their own. And, I hear from all four boys every day, and there's nothing that makes a life more fulfilling, nothing, than having your kids call you every day to tell you what's going on, to ask you a question, ask for advice, brag about something, or complain about something. And I'll tell you, there's nothing better. I don't understand the new generation not wanting to have kids. I wish I had 12 kids. And my role model was Fred Smith, who never missed dinner, and built, and he had lots of kids, and he built FedEx in the world. He's more impressive to me than Elon Musk, who's at least having the kids. But and I'm not saying he's not a great dad, but Fred Smith is a super dad while still doing unbelievable things. It can be done if you're effective. And Jack Welch taught me that, and it's good in parenting too. Deal with things as they are, not as you wish they were, and deal with them quickly. Once you've established reality, step into it and be consistent with that. So those are all parts of parenting and decision making and living. And by the way, my boys didn't want me to be home all the time. They wanted to see me working. They need a role model.
Right.
They don't need a role model of somebody who's, tailgating and, watching sports all the time and they want to see somebody who's actually trying to move the capitalist ball forward.
Absolutely. And from Joe Schwartz, I thought it was Jonathan for a minute, the picture. Thanks for great son years, Scott. Many of us learned from the culture that you built that sales is very much contact sport, and getting in the trenches in person with customers, especially in hard times, means absolutely everything. You're always, we'd have times when things would, break, and, we'd get in there, you'd come out, and, most CEOs and leaders would kind of run away, and you'd kind of jump in the fire.
There's no problem that you can't overcome. In the early days when I took over, 2 years into it, 2 years to the day I took over, and we had $2 million in sales, and we were losing $500,000 a month. And I went out to the factory floor, and every third workstation had a red hat on it, which meant it was broken and it failed diagnostics. And we would ship the workstations to the customer, and within 10 seconds, about 25% of them, the monitor would just go off like a flash bulb and die, because some phosphorus would break off the screen during shipment and go back to the high voltage arc, the MOSFET transistor. I remember all of this to this day, and it would zap and blow up not literally, but the screen would go out and go dead. So it looked like the computer died. And we couldn't stop shipping, because then they would go to Apollo. So we kept shipping them. And all we did was we said, all right, let's send a whole bunch of extra monitors to the sales office. So when when the customer would call the sales rep, and I remember a sales rep telling me a story. The customer called and said, "Hi, I just got my shipment," and he would, and some monitor. How many? I'll be right there. And boom, we were there within minutes with 7 extra monitors to turn them on. The guy would go, "IBM doesn't have this kind of service," and we were able to turn lemons into lemonade in a very, very powerful way, even though we had an engineering problem. So you sometimes have to spend the money, but that we totally solidified customers you should almost do that on purpose, have your stuff blow up and then go in and fix it right away. Okay, look at this service on these guys.
Yeah,
I'm not recommending that.
There you go. So great. So you kind of were or are admittedly shy, but yet you seem to be an extrovert in business. How did you kind of get over that hump?
Yeah, nobody believes that, but if you go find my Cranbrook High School yearbook, it says Scott's shy and unassuming manner won him a wealth of friends. I got A's because I didn't want to get embarrassed, and I just didn't want to get called out. And I just wanted to kind of sneak through life without, just doing my thing. And all of a sudden I became CEO, and I gave the first annual shareholders meeting speech. John Doerr's in the back row. as one of our board members and major investors. And I put up slide 1 and I turned my back to the audience and read the first slide. Then I clicked and I read the second. I never turned around and even looked at the audience. I went click, 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 and said, any questions? Please, no questions. And then at the end of it, John Doerr hauls me aside and he said, I'm sending you to New York and I am going to send you to a 3-day speech therapy class. You're going to learn how to give public speaking. And he sent me out there. I mean, Stanford MBA, I was not a good public speaker. That's just like ridiculous. And they taught me nothing about sales, just absolutely ridiculous. So anyhow, that taught me that I'm just going to have to be an extrovert. And if I'm going to be on stage, and I can remember the first 2-3 years I gave speeches, I would have to wear a jacket because I was sweating under my arms, and nervous about speeches, and I would be nervous the night before. And pretty soon, after a while, I got into it where the only thing I'd prepare for was my top 10 list, top 10 reasons Bill Gates is a monopolist, or the top 10 signs you're, gonna, whatever. I would always come up with some and have the place laughing and being a wise guy. And then I'd tell my stories, and I learned to have slides that had one word or just a picture up, and then I'd tell stories, and I was a storyteller up there. And then I learned, I'm going to walk into a customer and I'm going to look them in the eye, shake their hand, and forget their name immediately. I still do that, but it's just I learned if I'm going to represent. I mean, we had 235,000 employees roll through Sun Microsystems. If I was going to represent them, I couldn't be a hermit. And we couldn't advertise. We couldn't advertise out advertise IBM, DEC, Hewlett Packard, Intel, Microsoft, all these other companies. I had to get the press. I had to be a quote machine, and I would be a quote machine for them. Balmer and Butthead, and Big Hat, No Cattle, and all those other things. I used to be Big Hat, No Cattle. Now I'm Big Hat, Lots of Cattle with the ranch I just bought. But I digress. But I learned to use the power of the press, and I would say to the reporter after every talk, I said, "There, I gave you a lot of good content. Treat me right, treat me fairly, and I'll give you more." But even still, it was Scott. What was the word they always used for me? I can't remember now. The outrageous, controversial, whatever. They would always have some adjective about me. Brash, that was the one. Scott, the brash CEO of Sun Microsystems. I'm not brash. I mean, actually, if you come to dinner with me, I'll be kind of quiet. But I learned that I had to have a persona that cut through, and we didn't have the advertising dollars, so I got a lot of free advertising.
Lots of free PR there for sure. As Greg Papadopoulos mentioned, I think he called it the biting commentary. So how about the Marriott meeting story?
Yeah, so this is the sales persona and that I learned. One of my first jobs before I even went back to business school is I sold plastic for Rockwell International. So I knew what it was like and how hard it was, and how it could be a problem. So we wanted to reward the sales guys. We wanted to motivate them, and Sales Club was a thing. This was an 80s thing, and it's too bad that it's gone, because there was nothing harmful about it. There was nothing toxic about it, and there was nothing, exclusionary about it. But it was outrageous, and people drank. But anyhow, we rented the Marriott Desert Springs one year. We rented the whole thing. There were about 3,000 rooms, and sales reps were allowed to bring their significant other. I brought my mom most of the time, and because I was single through all those years. And Joe Roebuck would have a theatrical play, and he always had to be the center of attention, and people loved it and laughed about it and all the rest of it. And they would do things, have fun, and I tended to stay away because I wanted to have fun, and I didn't want them to think the boss was watching or whatever. They were there with their signature. So I was checking out after 3 days, and I could see the light flashing on the checkout screen of the gal, and she goes, "Are you Scott McNealy?" Sun Microsystem, CEO. I go, yeah, yeah, yeah. She goes, don't move. And she says, I'm getting my manager. So she ran and got her manager, and she came around the thing, and she got toe to toe. And she goes, you Scott McNealy, Sun Microsystem, CEO. I go,
The manager wasn't going to thank you for your business.
no, she wasn't. She said, I don't ever want your company back at my hotel again. And that's when I knew we were going to make our numbers the next year. And I tried not to laugh. I said, well, what seems to be the problem? And I'm trying to be, serious. And she says, well, your place, it was out of control. Everybody was drunk. They were up all night. They were loud and screaming. We had a couple other guests who weren't here, and they were all complaining, all the noise. And then you gave out all those neon necklaces and they're all up in the trees. It all looks like Christmas everywhere, and it's littered everywhere. It's just amazing. And then you had that what was it called? The Knights and King Arthur kind of dinner, and she's where you eat with your hands. She said there were at least 45 Cornish game hens in the air at any single moment in time. There's just this absolute food fight. And I'm just like, oh, I wish I'd been there. And she said, what the final straw that broke the camel's back was when your team pushed the live camel into the pool. And at that point, so I'm really sorry. We won't come back. But let me tell you, our sales meetings were absolutely epic. The spouses, the significant others would, on the flight home, would say, don't you come back into the house until you've qualified for club the next year. And that's one of the reasons the team, was so motivated and so focused and worked so hard to make our numbers, is they wanted to go to club. Plus they had a lot of other people that they know. And I made it very explicit. I said, you guys don't sell, we're laying off people in this company, and you have to know that. I would also go to the chip company and a chip team, and I would say, you don't get this chip on time, we're going to have to lay people off. I mean, I wasn't that direct with it, but I explained that there were a lot of your friends and compatriots are not going to fare well.
Absolutely. And Ruth Ann chimes in on the sales culture. So kind of with the sales meetings, the directness, leading by example, you were very deliberate in really shaping that great sales culture.
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't happen automatically, and yet at the same time, you have to put constraints on, and you got to tell them, you sell what's on the price list, and if you're going to move off the price list, you better get management to agree to go do that. You can offer service and time, but don't make the company do something that it wasn't designed to go do unless. So it was always a balance. And Joe Roebuck was famous in the budgeting process for yelling, all right, if you're not going to do this, close Chicago. Let's just shut it down. No reason to have Chicago. And so, that became kind of a fun tagline during budgeting time. I just close Chicago then. If we can't do that, just close Chicago. I did have Java hacked out of the budget while James Gosling was developing it at least 4 times, where my COO had cut it out of the budget, and I had to go back and put it back in. So, again, it is sort of the boss's problems. I made the mistakes, and I made the good decisions both, and I had to take responsibility. I don't want to go into all the mistakes I made, but there were a lot. In retrospect, it's really amazing how screwed up I was, but we did better than most.
There you go. That's great. So in conclusion here, Jack says, sorry, joined late. Did I miss a top 10 list? No, but he did.
I should have done a top 10 list. I'll do that next time.
Yeah, we can come back with that. But so yeah, lots of great sales tips that you shared. Anything else relative to sales wise? You were talking to sales team today, and maybe
I'll tell you the best thing we ever did for our sales team, and people can go back and search there were no scandals. There were no, issues of ethics at Sun. And that's the thing I'm most proud of, is that, we were a good company. We shared our technologies. We shared in the success of the company enormously. And it's why I'm a rancher instead of building a prepper thing in Hawaii right now. I didn't care to win the dollar race. I cared to win happy customers, fulfilled employees, and doing it in an ethical way that, I sort of wish a lot more of the leaders in all aspects and all institutions of America would take a little stronger focus on, because
Hmm.
I think we've lost the commonality of purpose and the commitment to the rule of law and ethics and personal responsibility in a horrible way. And so I hate to leave on a downer, but I'm very, very proud of the team and all 300 235,000 former employees that make, just including you, the best network of family that you could ever have. And like all of the people that are helping Colt with Little Horse, it's just so heartwarming for me. And it's to see the Sun employees cheering Maverick and Scout along on the sidelines, and everywhere I go, you know, the old people still remember me.
There you go. So awesome. Well, you've been amazing for sure, and thank you so much. Coming up actually next week on Monday, we have Greg Brown, who's the CEO of Motorola Solutions. Now, I don't know if you remember. I remember a interesting Wall Street Journal quote that Ed Zander, who I think was Greg's predecessor, said that really wasn't too sales friendly. Do you remember?
Yeah, it was on the cover. I don't think he meant it that way, but it came across that way. He said, "I love my job. It's a great job. I love Motorola. The only bad part of it is the customers." I didn't think that was exactly the message you want to put on the front page about being customer centric.
Little misquote, yes, but I can vouch, know him personally very well. Greg is wired like you, customers first, sales, kind of everything else. And then after that, we have a Denise Millard, who's a channel chief at Dell. Matt Horner, who runs a big piece of WWT. They were probably an early channel partner of yours as well, and lots of other great guests as well. So for everybody who's watching, thank you so much. Thanks to Sandler for sponsoring. Again, for those that are members of Sales Community, thanks. For those that are not, you can go to salescommunity.com and join for free. Tucker, thanks for your help behind the scenes. And Scott, personal thanks for all you did for me and my family and my career and my life, and just leading by example, always professionally and personally. Thank you so much.
And I'm always ready to help any of you out there, former Sun folks and anybody else. And you can work through Randy here to get a hold of me if you want. I'm always eager to help any